and I want to align my walk with the truth, even if it means um, devastating my family members for a time
Mhm.
in the circumstances that we're going to have to navigate now.
You know, it's fascinating to me with so many movements and whatever it might be throughout church history there seem to be the same kind of things that people want to move away from. And that's like, the view of sin,
Hmm.
taking a clear look at the cross. And
Hmm.
another one would be hell. So, in progressive Christianity, what's really interesting about the view of hell in progressive Christianity is it's very fluid. A lot of progressive thought leaders, you'll read their books, and at the end of the book, they'll say, well, I haven't really thought that much about, what I think about heaven and hell. I'm going to look into that next. And then the ones who have are going to be largely universalist in some way, whether they call themselves, as Nadia Bolz-Weber does, a Christocentric universalist, or like the author of the Shack calls himself, what does he call it? Universal reconciliation, where they might believe that Jesus has done it, but he's done it for everybody, so everybody's saved, and it ends up with a rejection of a literal place of punishment called hell. And so that's kind of how I try to flesh it out for people. As you ask 10 progressive Christians what their view of hell is, you're going to get 10 different answers, because some might say, well, it's just the reaping of the consequences of our negative actions while we're here on earth. And others might take it even further into the afterlife. But ultimately, they're going to say, no, a good God would not punish someone in a place, called hell. And so I'm
Hmm.
curious what the Mormon view of that is.
So, Alisa, all of that that you just described would map directly onto
Wow.
the majority of views that are held about hell, and the magnitude of hell within the restored gospel framework. Um, to describe it in very concrete language, the afterlife and judgment looks like this in the restored gospel picture of things, that when we die, we will be judged and assigned to one of four places. Heaven has a kind of a three-tiered design, that there is a lower kingdom of heaven, a middle kingdom, and then a higher kingdom. And that highest kingdom is where you would have access to the face-to-face presence of God. Um, and hell can be described in two different ways. Um, for the LDS person, there is a specific place called outer darkness where very few people um, will find themselves after judgment. That place is reserved for individuals who have received in this life and accepted the entire set of ordinances and made covenants, from baptism all the way to the set of ordinances available in the LDS temple. And then, after receiving all of that light and making covenantal vows in the temple to um, consecrate your entire life to building up the kingdom of God in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then turn away from that, reject it fully,
So
to
that's you, right?
that would be a person like me.
That
Although,
had to be heavy to process that. For you, I'm just
um, you know, I had an experience of a loved one very, very close to me when I was in high school. Someone very, very important in my life left the LDS church, and it literally felt like um, an arm had been cut off. They
mm,
were still living, but in a way, dead.
mm,
Like, seeing them and being around them was this constant reminder that they had shattered our eternal relationship, that they had the power to determine whether or not I would be connected to them in the next life. That their power to do that was greater than God, it was greater than my own power. Um, I couldn't stop that person from taking their name off of the membership registry, resigning their membership from the LDS church, and they made a clear and fully informed decision to do that. And so I had experienced this as a young adult, as a teenager. And so um, when I made the decision to make a full and clean cut from my participation and membership in the LDS church, all of those memories were very fresh in my
Mm.
mind. I knew that what I had been led to was going to be have like eternally
Yeah.
devastating impact, and so
Wow.
um, it is a really, really significant thing for an LDS person to walk away like I did and to reject that. There is a lot of discussion today, though, about the grace of God. And perhaps someone might say to me, well, Lucy, maybe you just didn't really understand everything. And so you didn't make a fully informed choice. Maybe you'll find yourself in one of the lower degrees of glory, which would be hell-like in a way because you are cut off from what the LDS worldview says is the point of eternity, which is eternal progression towards
Mhm.
Godhood. And so I will only be able to progress to a point and I'll know what I'm missing out on. And in a sense, that is being damned. That's being halted in my progression and cut off from the full measure of God's blessing and gift. And so there is this idea that these lower tiers of heaven are the LDS hell. But again, you can see how that presentation of a plan of salvation differs from the one that we discover in the Bible. And so, again, the question becomes, is this a watering down? Is
Mhm.
this shift is it a material and substantive shift? These are the questions that people would have to grapple with when confronted, with these
Yeah.
things. And again, when I was saved, so much of these things crystallized in a very
Mhm.
rapid succession in that moment where things that I had been exposed to in the Bible that had contradicted things in the restored gospel became very clear, and I understood um, in a very short moment that the contrast was meaningful to God. That
Mhm.
these things did matter to Him, whether they mattered to me or not was totally secondary or tertiary. But that these
Mm.
things were absolutely crucial, fundamental
Yeah.
for God, and so that my response was yes, I understand that. I see it now that it is crucial.
Yeah.
And I want to align my walk with the truth, even if it means um, devastating my family members for a time in
Mhm.
the circumstances that we're going to have to navigate now.